Rotted remains, the scratching wakes him, not the familiar creak of settling wood or the wind worrying at loose shingles. This is deliberate, insistent. Nails on painted boards, rhythmic and purposeful, like something trying to spell out a message in Morse code. Aiden lies still in the pre-dawn darkness, listening to his own breathing, trying to convince himself it's nothing, that he's imagining it, that exhaustion and grief haven't finally conspired to unhinge him completely. The scratching comes again, closer now, right outside. He throws back the sheets and pads barefoot through the hallway, the floorboards cold and unforgiving beneath his feet. Past Emma's empty room, its door hanging open like a mouth caught mid-scream, a frozen moment of silence that presses on his chest. The scratching has stopped, but something else has taken its place. A wet, labored breathing that seems to seep through the walls themselves, as if the house has developed lungs and is learning, poorly, how to use them. The front door's window shows him a shape on the porch, four-legged, low to the ground, waiting. His hand finds the light switch, fingers leaving sweat prints on the plastic. In his gut, something twists, that old familiar feeling he learned to trust during his years in Boston. The one that tells him when a scene is wrong, when the body on the floor hasn't died the way the evidence suggests. He's ignored that feeling too many times since coming back to Redemption Hollow. Ignored it when Emma started drawing those pictures. Ignored it when she stopped sleeping through the night. Ignored it right up until the moment she vanished. The porch light stutters on with a faint electrical hum, and the dog doesn't react to the sudden brightness. It sits perfectly still, facing the door, as if it had been waiting for him specifically. Waiting for hours, maybe. A mutt of indeterminate breeding, maybe 40 pounds, with fur that might have been brown or gray before whatever happened to it. The coat hangs in matted clumps, exposing patches of skin that look wrong in the yellow light. Too pale, too smooth, like melted wax that had cooled and hardened into something that only resembles flesh from a distance. Its eyes catch the light and throw it back at him, flat and reflective as highway markers. Dead eyes in a living face. But the chest rises and falls, rose and falls with mechanical precision. Aiden's hand hovers over the doorknob. Every instinct screams at him to leave it alone, to go back to bed, to pretend he's seen nothing. But he's spent too many years ignoring things, hasn't he? Pretending the sounds in the walls are just mice. Pretending Emma's nightmares are normal childhood fears. Pretending the hollow is just a place, just trees and shadows, and nothing more than geography. He opens the door. The smell hits him first, not the expected reek of wet dog or waste, but something metallic and sharp that coats the back of his throat like pennies dissolving on his tongue. Copper and rust, and underneath it all, something sweeter. Something rotting from the inside out. He's smelled death before, plenty of times, but this is different. This is death that hasn't quite finished its work. Death that got interrupted halfway through and decided to keep going anyway. The dog doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge him at all, just sits there with its tongue lolling from its mouth, panting those wet, rattling breaths that sound like someone drowning in slow motion. "Hey there," Aiden says softly, crouching down but keeping his distance, his knees cracking in the cold. "You okay, boy?" The question feels absurd the moment it leaves his lips. Nothing about this animal is okay. Up close, he can see the patches of exposed skin aren't just pale. They seem to shimmer faintly, catching the light in ways flesh shouldn't, as if something beneath the surface is moving, migrating. And the eyes. God, those eyes. They don't blink, don't track his movement, just stare straight ahead at nothing, glazed and empty as frosted windows. Aiden reaches out slowly, hand trembling, fingers extended toward the matted fur. He has to know, has to touch it, to prove to himself it's real. To prove he hasn't finally cracked, that grief hasn't hollowed him out and filled the empty spaces with hallucinations. The dog's head turns, not the whole body, just the head, swiveling on the neck with a wet, grinding sound like cartilage tearing, like joints that had been fused and forced to move anyway. Those flat eyes find his face, locking onto it with predatory focus, and for one terrible moment, he can swear he sees something moving behind them. Something that writhes and pulses like maggots beneath a thin membrane. The metallic tang in the air grows stronger, making his eyes water, and Aiden realizes with cold certainty that whatever sits on his porch wears a dog's shape the way a man might wear a coat, poorly, and only because it serves some purpose he can't begin to fathom. His daughter is out there somewhere, in the woods where things like this come from. The thought hits him like a fist to the chest, stealing his breath. Emma is out there, and if this is what crawled out of the hollow in the pre-dawn darkness, what else is waiting in those trees? He backs away from the thing on his porch, retreating into the house and locking the door, as if a deadbolt could keep out whatever looked at him through those glassy eyes. As if locks mean anything anymore in Redemption Hollow. He stands in the kitchen with his back pressed against the refrigerator, the metal cold through his t-shirt, listening to his own ragged breathing, waiting for the scratching to start again. Waiting for that wet, grinding sound as the head turned, bone on bone like a rusty hinge in need of oil. But there's nothing, just silence. Just the house settling around him with its familiar creaks and groans, and the first gray fingers of dawn creeping through the windows like unwelcome visitors feeling their way inside. When he finally works up the nerve to look outside again, the porch is empty. Only a dark smear remains where the thing had been, a stain that could have been mud or could have been something else entirely, something that has no business being there at all. Now, standing in the yard with morning mist coiling around his ankles like something alive, something with purpose, Aiden stares at what remains. The sun has barely cleared the tree line, painting everything in that flat, colorless light that makes the world look washed out and unreal. The kind of light that belongs in crime scene photographs, that drains the humanity out of everything it touches and leaves only evidence behind. The kind of light that makes you understand why people in old times feared the dawn, because sometimes what you see in the morning is worse than what you imagined in the dark. The dog, what's left of it, lies in a twisted heap near the corner of the house, half hidden by the overgrown hydrangea bush his mother planted 20 years ago. Something has torn into it with methodical efficiency, peeling back the rib cage like opening a can of sardines, leaving the organs exposed to the morning air. The heart is gone, so are the lungs. But that's not what makes Aiden's stomach clench and his throat tighten until he has to force himself to swallow. The smell rolls over him in waves, damp earth and rot, yes, but underneath it something else. Something that reminds him of the logging accident, of standing over Mike Patterson's body while that same sweet, sick odor rose from the wound in his chest. The smell of meat gone bad, of decomposition that started from the inside out. The smell of wrongness, of nature twisted into something it was never meant to be. Aiden pulls his shirt up over his nose and mouth, breathing through the fabric that still carries yesterday's detergent scent, and forces himself to move closer. His detective's mind tries to engage, tries to catalog and analyze, but his body wants nothing more than to run. To get in his truck and drive until Redemption Hollow is just a name in the rearview mirror, growing smaller and smaller until it disappears completely. Until it becomes just another place he used to know, another town that exists only in memory. But he doesn't run. Can't run. Whatever's happening here has its hooks in him now. He crouches beside the corpse, his knees sinking into the dew-soaked grass, the cold moisture seeping through his jeans. Flies should be swarming by now, drawn by the feast of exposed flesh, but there aren't any. Nothing moves except the morning breeze stirring the torn flesh, making the ragged edges flutter like obscene flags. Up close, he can see the bite marks aren't random. They're surgical, precise, as if whatever fed here knows exactly what it's looking for. As if it's done this before, many times before, and gotten very good at it. And there, growing from the exposed jaw where teeth should have been, spreading across the gray tongue like a stain, orange fungus. Bright as traffic cones, vivid as warning signs, clustered in thick patches that seem to pulse faintly in the morning light. Not like any mushroom or mold he's ever seen, and he's seen plenty growing up in these woods. The surface looks almost wet, glistening with some kind of secretion that catches the weak sunlight and throws it back in oily rainbows. As he watches, one of the larger growths seems to swell slightly, as if breathing, as if alive in a way that has nothing to do with life as he understands it. As if it's something that learned to mimic life without ever really understanding what life is. Aiden's hand goes to his pocket instinctively, reaching for the phone that isn't there, reaching for backup that doesn't exist. Not anymore. Not in Redemption Hollow, where the sheriff's department consists of 2 deputies who spend more time sleeping off hangovers than investigating anything, where the nearest state police barracks is 40 miles away, and by the time they arrive, whatever evidence exists will be contaminated, moved, or simply gone. Vanished like morning mist when the sun finally decides to burn through. He is on his own with this. Whatever this is, whatever is growing in the dark places of Redemption Hollow, spreading like cancer through the town's body, feeding on whatever it can find. And somehow Aiden knows with the cold certainty that sometimes comes in the morning light, that this is only the beginning. The streets of Graywater look worse in daylight than they have any right to, like a corpse that seems almost peaceful in the dark, but reveals its true rot come morning. Aiden walks the cracked sidewalks with his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, feeling the weight of eyes tracking him from behind yellowed curtains and half-closed blinds. The air tastes of diesel exhaust and something else, something organic and wrong, like meat left too long in the sun. The town has always been small, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business before they know it themselves. But this is different. This is the silence that comes after something unspoken has been agreed upon, a collective decision to look away and pretend everything is fine. The kind of silence that precedes violence or follows it. The kind that gets into your bones and makes you understand why people in small towns sometimes just snap, take a rifle up into a tower or a basement, and start making the silence permanent. The Henderson place is first. Their tabby cat has been missing for 3 days. Aiden has seen the flyers stapled to telephone poles, the photocopied face staring out with that typical feline indifference, reward printed in desperate capitals underneath. Mrs. Henderson comes to the door when he knocks but doesn't open the screen. Just stands there with one hand on the frame, her knuckles white as bone china, her face drawn tight as a drumhead. Through the mesh, Aiden can see the tremor in her jaw, the way her free hand clutches at the collar of her house dress like she's trying to hold herself together, or maybe hold something else out. "I'm sorry about your daughter," she says, not meeting his eyes. Her gaze fixes somewhere past his left shoulder, as if looking at him directly might turn her to salt. "But I can't help you. I'm not asking about Emma, I just wanted to know about your cat." Mittens ran off. Happens sometimes. The words come too fast, rehearsed. A script she's practiced in front of the bathroom mirror until the lies sound almost true. Probably found a better home. "Mrs. Henderson, I found a dead dog in my yard this morning. It had..." The door closes before he can finish. The deadbolt slides home with a sound like a rifle bolt chambering around. Final, absolute. The sound of a door that won't open again. Not for him, maybe not for anyone. 3 houses down, the same story plays out like a record with a scratch in it. The needle jumping back to the same groove over and over. Old man Garrett's beagle disappeared last week. The Kowalski's German shepherd the week before that. Even the Pritchards, who never met a piece of gossip they couldn't spread like butter on hot toast, suddenly have nothing to say when Aiden asks about their missing terrier. They stand on their porch with identical expressions of polite blankness, their mouths forming the right shapes for concern, but their eyes keep sliding away, focusing on anything but his face. Sarah Pritchard's hands twist a dish towel into a rope, wringing it like a chicken's neck, wringing and wringing until the fabric might tear. "You know how it is," Tom Pritchard says, his voice carrying that forced casualness that means he's lying through his teeth. Behind him, their house exhales the smell of burned coffee and fierce sweat. Animals wander, nature of the beast. 6 pets in 3 weeks isn't wandering, Aiden says. The sun beats down on his neck, and he can feel sweat gathering at his collar, mixing with the coppery taste that still clings to the back of his throat like old pennies. That's a pattern. Maybe you should talk to animal control. Sarah Pritchard's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Those eyes are already dead, Aiden thinks. Already mourning something she can't name or won't. Though I hear they're backed up something awful. They go inside before he can press further, leaving him standing on their walkway with the morning sun beating down on his shoulders and the certainty settling in his gut like a stone. Or like cancer, maybe. Something growing and dark and wrong. By the time he makes it to the end of the block, Aiden has counted 9 missing pets. 9 families who suddenly can't remember details, who speak in hushed tones and half-finished sentences, who look at him like he's the problem. Like asking questions is worse than whatever is taking their animals in the night. Like he's the one who brought the darkness to their doors, carried it with him like a disease. The town knows something, and they've decided collectively that silence is safer than truth. It's the kind of decision that damns everyone who makes it, Aiden thinks. The kind that turns ordinary people into accomplices, into something worse than bystanders, into believers. The kitchen table has become his makeshift laboratory, though that's being generous. More like a crime scene he's contaminating with every breath, every touch, every molecule of air he exhales into the house's stale atmosphere. The harsh lamp overhead, one of those adjustable architect's lamps Emma bought at a yard sale, casts everything in stark relief. The chipped coffee mug he's been using for 3 days straight. The stack of unopened mail that's accumulated since Emma disappeared. The plastic bag containing what remains of the dog's jaw. He wrapped it in 3 layers of garbage bags before bringing it inside, sealing each one with paranoid care. But he can still smell it. That sweet, sick odor that seems to bypass his nose entirely and go straight to the lizard part of his brain, the part that understands rot on an instinctual level. The part that whispers, run. Get away from this thing before it gets into you, before it makes you like it. He snaps on a pair of latex gloves, leftovers from his Boston days, when evidence collection was someone else's problem. Not this. Never this. Never hunched over his own kitchen table at 2 in the morning, studying something that shouldn't exist while the house creaks around him like a living thing. The orange fungus has grown since morning. He's sure of it. The clusters have spread further across the exposed bone, creeping along the yellowed surface like spilled paint in slow motion. Thriving on death. Feeding on whatever the dog was, whatever it became, in those final moments before the shotgun blast. Aiden positions his reading glasses. When the hell did he start needing those? And leans closer with a pair of kitchen scissors. The fungus glistens under the lamplight, its surface slick with that oily secretion that catches the light and throws back rainbows. Pretty almost. Beautiful the way poisonous things often are, advertising their danger with bright colors that say, "Stay away, I will hurt you in ways you can't imagine." The scissors touch the largest cluster. The fungus recoils. Not much. Just a flinch, really. A slight compression of the spongy tissue, pulling back from the metal like a sea anemone withdrawing its tentacles. But it moves. It fucking moves. Not the passive movement of something disturbed by contact, but active withdrawal. Purposeful. Aware. Aiden's stomach lurches, bile rising hot and acidic. His hand shakes, making the scissors tremble against the fungus. And for a moment he thinks he might vomit right there on the kitchen table. Add his own fluids to the horror show he's brought into the space where he and Emma ate breakfast and argued about grocery lists and made love on lazy Sunday mornings. But he doesn't. He's seen worse. Hasn't he? Bodies pulled from the Charles River after 3 weeks in the water. Overdose victims who'd been dead for days, their faces frozen in expressions of surprise or terror or relief. The logging accident, Mike Patterson's chest split open, that same orange growth spreading from the wound like a stain. He's seen worse. Had he? The scissors close, cutting through the spongy flesh with a wet sound that makes his teeth ache. The fungus shudders as the piece separates, a ripple passing through the remaining clusters like a wave across water. And for one terrible moment, Aiden can swear he hears something, a sound too high-pitched for human hearing, a frequency that exists just at the edge of perception. The way you can sometimes hear electricity humming in the walls. A scream, maybe, or a warning. The sample goes into a plastic bag, then into his jacket pocket where it rests against his chest like a tumor. His hands are steady now, his jaw set with the grim determination that carried him through a decade of homicide work. Whatever this thing is, it has answers, and Aiden intends to find them. Even if those answers damn him, even if they damn everyone. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the kitchen window in its frame. Somewhere in the woods, something calls out, A sound that might be an owl, or might be something else entirely. Something that learned to mimic an owl's cry the way the thing in the woods learned to mimic Emma's voice. The fungus in the bag continues to grow, cell by cell, spreading its corruption into the dark.